is Brannon Howse Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this January 27th, 2026. Glad you're with us tonight. I'm going to have on Leo Holman. Now, Leo is, I got to warn you guys up front, don't get mad at me. I interview a lot of different people, and some of them I agree with on this, some I agree with on that. We don't have to always agree on everything. And Leo and I don't agree on everything. Leo doesn't always agree with my eschatology, end time beliefs, but we're still friends and work together. Leo is really wound up. I just got to warn you, when Leo comes on, don't get mad and say, I don't like that, and turn off. We let him and others voice their opinion. We go back and forth, and we'll have a great conversation. And some of it you may go, oh, I don't like what he's saying. Well, you know what? Wait a minute, because I'm sure the topic will change, and then you will like what he's saying. But that's the beauty of talk TV and talk radio, right? We don't all have to agree. Like, again, Ronald Reagan said, someone that I agree with 80% of the time is not a 20% enemy. But I'll tell you, Leo is really wound up over what happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And a lot of people are, on the right and the left. Sean Hannity came out today. I think it was over at the Daily Mail. Sean Hannity came out today and is really not happy about what's going on with the whole immigration push. What I'm trying to say to you is there are a lot of people in the political talk radio, MAGA world that are, unhappy with various aspects of things that are going on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here we go. Here it is. Let's see. Hannity critiques ICE. Sean Hannity blasts key Trump policies, becomes latest MAGA conservative to turn on immigration raids. All right. It's a reality. We can handle it. We can all talk about it. And Leo is very disturbed by what happened in Minneapolis. I'm disturbed by what I saw happen in Minneapolis, that guy being shot. There's a lot we still don't know. So I've been a little more, middle of the road, saying, I don't know why he went out there and confronted him when he's got a gun and magazines. That's his right to do. I wouldn't go out there and confront federal officers or police in a confrontational manner being armed, because I just think it invites a possible outcome like we saw. But hey, at the same time, he has the constitutional right to carry and a First Amendment right. Now, there's controversy tonight because President Trump in Iowa, and I think before he took off for Iowa, or when he landed in Iowa twice today, he's talked about that gun and those two clips and made comments about these are bad things. Wait a minute. Someone having a gun and two clips isn't necessarily a bad thing if they're not doing bad things with them. The gun and the two clips are neutral, just like money is neutral. Technology is neutral. You can use anything for good or bad, but there's a lot of folks out there tonight that are not happy in the Second Amendment world. We'll get into some of the things that the gun owners of America are talking about, including we need, and I got a clip by the Attorney General of Kansas, who I've known for like 22 years, Chris Kobach. He's talking about, hey, we're kind of fighting our friends in the Trump administration on some of these Second Amendment issues. We agree with them on a lot, but we're kind of fighting with them in courts and in briefs over the Second Amendment, some of them, these issues. Suppressors, shorter barrels, etc. on shotguns. I got a clip by Chris Kobach tonight. I also can show you what Gun Owners of America is saying is going down right now with the Democrats in Virginia. They're just destroying the Second Amendment. And this is what's coming when the libs take over if we don't shore up the Second Amendment in law, not executive order, but in law. Oh, we got so much to get to tonight. So let's get right to it. Before we do, as always, please remember we are brought to you by you. Please go to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution. Don't underestimate a $10, $20 contribution. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Most of our contributions are small dollar amount contributions, and they do all add up. So thank you for your contributions. worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Now, let's go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors real quick. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You know, I take the Numi every day. That's got the glutathione to detox your cells. Some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. You know, I take the Gatatana every day. I sprinkled half a scoop on Dolly's food this morning. That's at melissahousegpa.com or worldviewtube.com/sponsors. One scoop of this phytoplankton, this Gatatana, is the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. Feeds your cells down to the mitochondria to boost your immune system so your own immune system can fight off all those bad things. And remember, the guy that developed it started eating it out of his the fish tanks, the tanks he was using to raise the phytoplankton for his crayfish and whatnot. Got a terminal diagnosis, started eating. It's like, what do I got to lose? End up living another 10 years. His biopsies came back benign, 11 of them. So again, there you go. Bella Grace, you know, I take that each and every day. On top of taking the Bella Grace elixir, we also have, Melissa and I take the Bella Melts. The Bella Melts. Some folks that are taking this are losing 3 to 4, 5 pounds a week. Curbs your cravings and appetite for the munchies, etc. Speeds up your metabolism, and it also stimulates your body's natural GLP-1, your natural GLP-1. Bella Melts, available at melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Get a subscription and save. Of course, Worldview Talk, power is out for a lot of people around us in the Mid-South, to the South, and to the Northeast. And some of them, it could be a couple weeks. So you better make sure, whether it's a storm, ice storm, blizzard, cyber hack, a tornado, straight line winds, hurricane, whatever could take down the grid. Make sure you're prepared. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Get your solar generator like I have. Get your satellite phones. Get your little bivvies that allow you to text using your cell phone and send a message through the satellites. Get your Starlink, your portable Starlinks if you want. All of it is there at worldviewtalk.com. worldviewtalk.com. We also have a number you can call. That number is great to use because you can ask a lot of questions and get exactly what you need. So feel free to also call the folks at Worldview Talk. And that number is, what is it, Logan? 1-866. Oh, I can't remember. 1-866-83. I don't even want to give it because I want you to call the wrong. What is it, Logan? 1-866, there it is, 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224, and ask all the questions you want. These people are in America, and they speak English, and they're ready to go 24/7, 1-866-738-3224. Okay, before we go to our first guest, The Vault, okay? Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central, I am going to get to see for the first time something I've been waiting well over a year to see. And I'll see it tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central. I'm going to get to see a demo of all of our new powerful servers that have been built and the software programs that have been built that allow me to search my 36 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, Bible studies, conference DVDs. And if there's a clip that I want to pull out, let's see. I kind of want to pull that clip up where the gentleman that I interviewed, Larry Grothwell, is talking about the Weather Underground, and that when he went undercover with them with the Weather Underground, they talked about killing 25 million Americans when they brought about their communist revolution. I like to find that clip and play it. I just put in Larry Grothwell clip, boom, hit return, and it'll pull that clip out of that hour show immediately. I want to find out where Alex Newman said this, or where Jimmy DeYoung said that, or John Whitcomb said this. Right now, folks, I have the hardest time finding content in my own library because it's 36 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, worldview conferences. But guys, my IT team has been working for over a year, building these massive servers, building programs that transcribed everything, coded it, time-stamped it, and I get to see tomorrow what it will do. Now, I don't know. I'll let you know how it turns out, because in a week or two after that, 'cause I'm going to use it for a week or two and make sure it's all working and spitting out good information. Isolated servers. These are isolated servers on our system, isolated. They're not tied into some other system that's going to be spitting out garbage, cultural Marxism, DEI mess. These are my isolated servers. And you're going to be able to search and use it for research, Bible study, worldview training, just asking questions of our system. And you're going to get answers from trusted sources like Dr. John Whitcomb, who lived to be about 100 years old, or Jimmy DeYoung, or Phil Haney, or Ron Carlson. It's going to be amazing. And I've waited a long time to see this. Now, one of my IT guys, I guess he saw it a couple weeks ago. And in a phone conversation, he said, hey, I saw this. And I said to my other IT guy on the phone, wait a minute, how did he see it? And I haven't seen it. Well, we were in a Zoom call together and I had it up there, so I showed it to him. But it's not quite ready for you to see it yet, Mr. B. I'm like, all right, fine. But I said to the other IT guy, so you saw it, what'd you think? He said, it'll blow your mind, Mr. Howse. It'll blow your mind how it would take and pull out a 2-minute clip out of all your years of stuff, find the video, pull out a 2-minute clip from an hour video and give you exactly what you were asking for. I said, I'm excited. It's going to give you video, audio, and text. It's going to be one of the most powerful Bible worldview software programs in America. And guess what? When you are a member of the Vault, you will not have to pay more. We are making this all a part of your Vault membership. So please go to the Vault, become a member now for as little as $7.99 a month, $9.99 a month. You want to go month to month. Join it a year. That gets it down to $7.99 a month. You want to join for 6 months? That's $8.99 a month. You can search all of our content. This is just a small sampling of all that content, folks. And I'm really excited about the new stuff we're adding. Of course, my new book on Hamas is in there. My new book on why I'm a Christian Zionist is in there. There's a lot of stuff there. So please go and join the Vault right now. It's a great way to support us, and you get access to information, news, information, biblical worldview, Bible prophecy, and more. There's nothing else like this, folks, because no one has done what we've done for 36 years with the people that we've been interviewing, had speaking for us, some of them who've passed away. So this cannot be duplicated. It's one of a kind. Please go there and join right now. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. All right, let's get going. Joining me now is Leo Holman. Oh, there's a lot of controversy coming out of the Trump administration related to the Second Amendment. More comments today from President Trump. One of his U.S. attorneys made a comment that gun owners of America and many others are seizing upon to try to clarify another controversy in the MAGA world related to the Second Amendment. Leo Holman is covering it. Here is Leo's headline over at leoholman.substack.com. You're either for the Constitution and Second Amendment or you're not. Globalist power elites getting exactly what they want with both sides in right-left paradigm playing right into their hands. Subtitled, Tyranny Knocking at the Door, FBI Director Kash Patel gives false statement to Fox News about the rights of Americans to keep and bear arms in certain places. And of course, this has been called out by, as I said, gun owners of America. Here they are, gun owners of America. You don't lose one's constitutional right when you exercise another. First and Second Amendment are not mutually exclusive. And gun owners of America will defend both with no compromise. Wall Street Journal FBI Director Kash Patel suggests it's illegal to bring guns to protest. Quote, the Second Amendment protects Americans' right to bear arms while protesting, a right the federal government must not infringe upon, end quote. That's what the gun owners of America is saying. Well, President Trump is responding to a lot of this today. He is, of course, in Iowa. Here is a little exchange. We have a couple of them. Here's the first one from President Trump today. Watch and listen.
Sir, was Mr. Petty acting as an assassin? Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Petty, your deputy chief of staff said that. You don't think so?
I think on stage
With that being said, you know, you can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns.
What about the Second Amendment?
Listen, you can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's just a very unfortunate incident.
What about the Second Amendment, sir?
You can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. It's a very unfortunate situation. Then he was stopped at a restaurant in Iowa where he was signing autographs and taking pictures and made a comment about it. Here's what he said just a couple hours ago.
The assessment from some of your own officials that Alex Preddy is a domestic terrorist or an assassin.
Well, I haven't heard that, but certainly he shouldn't have been carrying a gun. But hey, look, bottom line, everybody in this room, we view that as a very unfortunate incident, okay? Right. Everyone, unless you're a stupid person. Very, very unfortunate incident. I don't like that he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff.
Whoa. Let me get that again.
I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad.
I want to go back further.
Incident. I don't like that he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff. And despite that, I say that's a very unfortunate.
Okay. Was it smart? I'm not getting into this whole thing yet because I'm watching and waiting for more to come out. But would I go to a protest and engage federal officers with a gun? No, I personally would not. Okay, that's just me. Do people have the right to go to a protest? Unless it's, an area that's clearly been laid out, like, hey, the president's going to be here or some official's going to be here, and this is an area where we're not allowing guns in and people are being screened, that's different. But in a public setting, in a public protest, if someone wants to bring their gun, they can do it. I wouldn't be getting in a confrontation with police or anybody with a gun on me because, again, it could be a bad day. It could go the wrong way. It could be perceived in the wrong way. But that doesn't mean they don't have the right to do it. People have the right to go to a protest and carry their firearm and exercise their First and Second Amendment. So when we say things like, some bad things, having a gun and 2 magazines, a lot of people in this audience probably don't leave home without their gun, which usually has 1 clip in it. And then they usually probably bring another one with them. They might have one in their coat or on their side. I mean, I know a lot of guys in this audience listen to this program. They don't want to get caught up in something like a jihadi attack where someone's coming in and fully armed, and they don't want to just have 10 to 12 shots. So they'll carry their pistol with their clip and maybe bring an extra one with them. That's not a lot of bad things. How many times have we seen people step up and take down a guy that comes into a building or somewhere to kill a bunch of innocent people? And it was an individual that put their life on the line, stood up with their personal handgun and stopped a massacre. This has happened so many times in America. So these are not bad things. We have to be extremely careful here. And I'm going to get into a clip by the Attorney General, Chris Kobach, who has spoken at our Worldview Weekends in Kansas. I've known Chris Kobach for 22 years, probably, when I first met him, 22 years ago. He's concerned about what this administration is doing and the DOJ and the ATF under this administration. Bringing some light to the topic, as I said, is Leo Hohmann. Leo, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, Brannon. Good to be with you.
You too, Leo. All right. So what do you make of those 2 clips by the president today?
Very concerning that a man who was not violent and was legally and responsibly, I might add, not just legally, but also responsibly carrying his firearm.
You had a permit, right? You had a permit.
Right. He had a permit, but you can have a permit and be and be legally carrying, but not be responsible. He was both legal and responsible. He was not brandishing his weapon, as Kristi Noem said in the hours right after it happened. It was in his holster, and inside the waistband holster, I might add. And so he was legally and responsibly carrying a firearm in full accordance with the U.S. Constitution and Minnesota law. Was there crime tape anywhere up, Brannon, in the space where this gentleman was standing when this altercation took place?
Not that I saw.
Not that I saw either. That would change everything. If it was an official police operation going on in the direct vicinity where he was, meaning roped off with crime tape, maybe I could understand some aggressive behavior by the police when they saw that he had a gun. But there was no such situation. And this is where people miss the mark. When they hear these protests are going on, a lot of them have even called them not protests, but riots, okay? Violence. 95 to 99% of what you see going on in Minnesota is not riots or violent protesting. It's people walking around with signs. In some cases now, they are doing some sort of what I would call, and what American tradition would call civil disobedience, putting their bodies in the way of law enforcement. He wasn't even doing that, okay? And I don't know that there was any of that going on in that exact vicinity where he was when this all went down. So people better get their heads screwed on straight and look at this for what it is and not what they're told by liars in the media. And I'm talking about conservative media here. They are the worst offenders in this case. I could not believe, I'm going to name names. Within an hour or two after this happened, I got a headline into my email box from the Western Journal saying terrorist killed by ICE. And the subhead was something like he intended to carry out a massacre. And this is what
wasn't that being said? Wasn't something like that being said by officials as well? He
yes.
come there to do maximum damage or something. I don't know what.
Yes. But these media operatives, they're not media. They're not journalists. They're influencers. That is, in some ways, if any good comes out of this, Brannon, this tragedy, we now know who the real journalists are on the right and who are posing as journalists when they're really just MAGA influencers. Jack Posobiec, Steve Bannon, no good. They are still running with this today, this long after all these facts have come out, all the video evidence. They're still cheering it on and calling for more, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the one good thing that's come out of this is, for me at least, I'm only speaking for myself here. I'm not speaking for Brannon. I'm not speaking for anyone in Brannon's audience.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Jack Posobiec. I've been warning about him for a while anyway. So
well, remember, he was one of those standing out there grinning with the binder, the Epstein file binder.
Yeah,
that had
and thrusting his a rosary in the air and all this other cosplay, right?
Right. So these people have outed themselves as fake journalists because they're unwilling to report the story according to the facts on the ground, substantiated with evidence, and run with any lie that comes out of people with very low credibility, like Kristi Noem and Kash Patel. So as far as I'm concerned, they need to be replaced because they are completely incompetent and will say anything with zero regard for the facts or the truth.
Let me go to Eric Pratt with Gun Owners of America. He's been making the rounds. Just text him a while ago to see if we can get him on the show. Text his cell phone to see if he responds. But Mike Hammond, I think Mike Hammond, who I interviewed all the time for years and years and years, I have a hard time reaching him. I think maybe he's gone into the administration, so I'm trying to find out. But let's see what Eric Pratt, president of Gun Owners of America, said.
If the administration or anyone was to move to try and say, if you're exercising your First Amendment rights to gather and protest and express yourself, but you can't have your Second Amendment rights at the same time and bring a gun with you, would you and your members push back dramatically against something like that?
Well, we would disagree because carrying a firearm is not inherently a crime and should not be treated as such. So if one is carrying lawfully and is respecting the rule of law, one should not expect that law enforcement will get in your face because by and large, law enforcement supports the right of civilians to bear arms by large majorities. There is an aspect where gun owners have been frustrated with the Department of Justice for continuing to defend gun control in court. They're trying to moot our legal cases, which are challenging Biden-era ATF restrictions, and they're fighting us on our one big beautiful lawsuit that's challenging the 1934 gun registration scheme. Now, having said that, President Trump's administration has taken some of the most pro-Second Amendment actions in modern history. So, in fact, even today, Secretary Leavitt, her affirmation of the president's support for the right to keep and bear arms matters. So, the Second Amendment protects the right of law-abiding Americans to defend themselves against criminals and against tyranny, but it doesn't protect the ability to obstruct or shield foreign criminals from removal.
So again, we've got some folks in the administration who are doing a great job defending the Second Amendment, but then we got some problems with what's going on in the administration, in the DOJ. Here is Chris Kobach. He is the, I think he's still he's the Kansas Attorney General. Kansas Attorney General. Listen to what he's saying about what's going on in this DOJ under this administration. He's very concerned.
Let me give you one that's got me a little worried, though. And I hope there are some White House people listening at this point. And that is right over there. Oh, okay, yeah, there he is, Todd. Okay, this is a perfect example. That I won't ask Todd to respond. But so another area where we need something done quickly is the NFA's use of the taxing power to regulate suppressors and short-barreled rifles.
Okay, so the topic is suppressors and short-barreled rifles. Okay, that's the topic. And there are taxes that have been put on them to raise revenue. Listen to what he says from that, just so everybody understands. The issue is suppressors, which some people want to use for their, to not blow out their hearing all the time, and then short-barreled rifles, some of them. Here we go.
Many of you know, everybody should know, the big beautiful bill removed the $200 tax. And the only reason Congress did that was to take away the one leg that regulation was standing on. In 1937, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the 1934 or 1937, 39, whatever, in the late 1930s, the Supreme Court ruled, I believe it was a 37, that the NFA can only be justified as the exercise of the taxing power. Even said it cannot be construed as a commerce power because Congress didn't say it was using commerce power. Congress said this is a tax and that's all it is. The big beautiful bill took away the tax, so therefore the whole thing no longer has any constitutional basis whatsoever. Unfortunately, the current administration, our friends, are still, through the ATF, still registering, regulating, putting these onerous burdens on firearms owners who are simply seeking to get something to protect their ears or something, a shorter version of a rifle or a shotgun. And it's still being enforced. And as a result, all of us are on a cert petition in the Eastern District of Missouri, where we are litigating against our friends in the Trump administration, Department of Justice. There's also a case in the Northern District of Texas, where several of us are parties against the U.S. Department of Justice on this very issue. And the Justice Department position is that, oh, by the way, there's another tax on the businesses, and maybe we can extend the reach of that tax and say that covers all the regulations we'd like to keep in place on suppressors. They're also, and by the way, the Brady Group is lined up with the U.S. Department of Justice in these cases. I don't understand it. I've pressed the case, and the two answers I've gotten are, well, look at all the good things we did for you over here. And the other answer was, well, there might be some other laws that could be in jeopardy if the taxing power is no longer a basis for those regulations or laws. And my answer is, so then they're unconstitutional. So anyway, I love what the Trump Justice Department is doing, but on this particular issue, it just vexes me why they're not with us on this stage saying, hey, that's unconstitutional. We can't do that.
There you go. All right. So, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Chris Kobach. He's a common sense conservative. You could see it there. I like what he said. But let's look at the Trump administration objectively. They're not the worst on gun control. Obviously, we've had worse, but they're not the best either. I mean, let's look at Trump in his first term. He banned bump stocks. Okay, he also has come out in favor of red flag laws. That famous quote where I think he was with Pam Bondi, another very lukewarm Second Amendment advocate, and he said the president said, take the guns first and worry about litigating and prosecuting later. And that's what red flags are. I could say that my neighbor, I saw him walking around his backyard in a fit of anger. Him and his wife must have had a bad argument. And I know for a fact that he has a safe full of handguns in his basement. So I'm going to call the police and report him. Police could come immediately to that man's house, confiscate all of his guns, and worry about litigating the case later. He might get them back 6 months, a year, or 2 years later. That is completely against all standards of due process and the Constitution, and of course the Second Amendment. So, President Trump is not rock solid as people think on the Second Amendment.
Here is a good news. Let me give you a good one. DOJ says United States Postal Service gun mail ban is unconstitutional. So this is some good news here. Americans may soon be able to ship guns through the mail. That's the potential practice outcome of the Department of Justice changing its position on the constitutionality of the federal ban against civilians shipping pistols to the United States Postal Service. On Thursday, the DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel released a review of the shipping ban and concluded it violates the Second Amendment. It said that the executive branch should no longer enforce the law, and the United States Postal Service should update its rules to allow civilians to ship certain kinds of guns directly through the mail. So it just depends on the day, the week, the month, what we get, right? Like you said, it's not the worst. But and they've done some good things for us on the Second Amendment and many other areas, but it's not the best.
This seems, Brannon, like some of the other, where we get a few crumbs, but then they hold back the whole ball of wax. There's another case out west, I think it might have been California, but don't hold me to that, where the U.S. Department of Justice is arguing in favor of redefining the term arms in the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. Because why? They want to throw certain blades, certain types of knives under the same type of federal regulation as guns have come under since the 1928 Gun Act. And so they are also on the wrong side of the issue there. I mean, so we have good, we have bad, and we have in between with this administration, and they're just been really unpredictable on this issue, Brannon.
Let me go to what the Dems want to do here if they take power. We know, but we got some more clear indication this week now that the state of Virginia has gone, basically full on Marxist here with us, semi-Marxist, full Marxist, how you want to describe it. And this is why many of us are wanting the Trump administration and the DOJ to go ahead and put in laws, work on legislation to strengthen the Second Amendment, because we really need it to be bolstered up and strengthened legislatively. That would make it very difficult for another administration to come in and change that unless they go through it legislatively, not just executive orders and, changing regulations and restrictions. We got to get some of this stuff in law, right? Legislative law. But look at what Virginia's doing. Gun Owners of America has provided a list. Here, 8 gun control bills passed the committee. This is dated today, January 27th, 2026. Anti-gun bills advanced out of committee. They passed out of committee and now moving forward in the legislative process. Restrict concealed carry, reciprocity, and limits lawful carry protections. In other words, if Tennessee recognizes Virginia, Virginia recognizes Tennessee, you can travel to and fro. I guess it's going to put some restrictions there. Bans firearms in medical and mental health facilities, leaving citizens unable to defend themselves in vulnerable situations. Restricts lawful firearms possession on college campuses. Why are we going to make gun-free zones for kids, young people, 22, 20, whatever, 19, who have gone through the process and are carrying? Why are we going to restrict them? I mean, that's a gun-free zone. We're asking for problems, right? Criminalizes common firearm parts and home-built firearms that have long been legal. Imposes mandatory storage requirements inside private homes, interfering with families' ability to defend themselves. Restricts lawful firearms transport and imposes burdensome vehicle storage rules, kind of like Illinois. Expands public carry bans across the Commonwealth. Bans commonly owned firearms and standard capacity magazines that are protected under the Supreme Court precedent. So this ought to give us a little bit of an idea of what the Dems want that they're working for in Virginia that they want on a national level, which is why the Trump administration, as I said, legislatively, we need under their leadership, the ATF, the DOJ, working together with attorney generals like Chris Kobach to strengthen the Second Amendment and finalize it into law that, again, can't just have executive orders signed and they're just signing away our Second Amendment. Leo?
Absolutely correct, Brannon. And I personally would like to see the ATF disbanded.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no purpose for it. It was created in an era where we had, the mafia using submachine guns in the streets. And that was the reason, supposedly, that the whole, gun control in America started. And they passed these gun control acts, and they just expanded out from there. Like always, the original purpose gets lost, and it's just, complete bureaucratic spillover and growth. The mission creep, I mean, that is an understatement when it comes to the ATF. And it's, they can make rules that have the force of law. We saw under the last administration, and I think even going back to the first Trump administration, where they had tried to ban, folding stocks on a short-barreled rifle, and they called them pistol braces. Remember, it was basically call it a long pistol or a short rifle. Either take your pick. And because the law doesn't require a regular firm stock on these type of short-barrel rifles, the handicapped and other people were saying, well, how can I even shoot this if I don't have, a stock on it? So that was the reason they created what they call pistol braces, so you could brace it on your arm. They outlawed that as if it was law. And the Supreme Court eventually, or some high court, I don't know if it went all the way to the Supreme Court, I think it did, but they overruled that, and now we have pistol braces back. But it's just nonsensical, some of their rules and regulations, and completely off and not following the original mission which was the law passed by Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has got a lot of people out there talking about it. No doubt about it. It is swirling. It's a debate. It's another controversy inside the MAGA world, like we needed another controversy in the MAGA world, right, Leo?
Yeah. Further dividing us. Correct.
And you know what, Leo? I think a lot of this, what it's doing is up in Minneapolis, because, I don't think President Trump is actually, his administration has actually rounded up and deported that many illegal immigrants when you compare it to other administrations. So I know he keeps saying, speed it up, speed it up, speed it up. So somewhere along the way, somebody is slowing it down, because he says he wants it sped up, but it's not happening. He also apparently is telling Pam Bondi, I'm getting frustrated and blah, blah, blah. So, I had Alex Newman on today. We were talking about that on the air, that he has a lot of people around him that are not fully carrying out as aggressively as he wants what he wants. They're slow walking a lot of things, and he's getting frustrated, apparently. With that being said, I believe, and I don't think President Trump per se is a part of this, because, again, he seems to want to speed up the deportations, but he's not getting that. I think what this is all about then, really, in my opinion, is, as I keep saying over and over, it's about conflict, right? The change comes from the conflict. They need people fighting and this controversy and the nonstop news to wear down the right, to wear down the MAGA people, where now you have Sean Hannity coming out and saying today, according to, I think, the Daily Mail, he's saying, we need to do this a different way. Maybe we offer them money to leave, but we don't need to be going into Home Depot and taking these people that are working. And, so now you have the right kind of going soft on this, or at least coming out and expressing their concerns about, do we just go after the hardened criminals, or what are we going to do here? I think that's what this has been. It's been about buying time and wearing people down. So even the people on the right now are starting to show their true colors, that they maybe weren't really for deportation of all the illegal immigrants in the first place. Maybe some, but not all. But I think, and again, you can go back to my broadcast from January of 2020 when I did a broadcast on ID 2020 on the United Nations. And that was then about vaccines and immigration. Get everyone a digital ID for the person's vaccination record and then immigration. People can come and go. And with all the talk of Canada as a 51st state and North American Union and all that, I have to wonder if the goal isn't all this chaos and emotion. And finally, it's like, look, if we just all go to digital IDs through the Hegelian dialectic of thesis and antithesis, idea, opposite idea, conflict, now a solution. We've moved the ball down the field, right? We've got to get the two sides to come together for a third option. Third option, we get digital IDs. We get digital IDs, people can come and go as they want. We can stop all the welfare fraud. Now we're seeing all this fraud come out, billions. And they're saying what's going on in California will make Minnesota look like a walk through the park. So at some point, you got all these problems that get revealed, and there's a solution. And the solution is everybody gets digital IDs. And you can deal with all these people that are threatening conservatives over the internet. Look at all the conservatives being threatened online, right? And now you're going to say, well, we know who did that. So you just watch one crisis after another, and the solutions are going to come back to everybody getting a digital ID. I think that's where it's going. And I don't know who's manufacturing all of this. I don't think President Trump is manufacturing that, but I think there are players that are, and they know darn well what they're doing. What do you think?
Well, I've said last week or two ago, when this whole Minnesota thing started taking a turn for the worse. Well, when it first started, I'm like, keep an eye on this. This has a potential to blow up. And sure enough, it did. And then I wrote another article and I told people, this really doesn't have anything to do with immigration and deporting people. And I gave them the numbers and I showed how Trump has not deported any more people in his first year in office than the average annual number of deportations that took place under Obama and Biden. And Obama actually deported a little bit more. This is not about that. I mean, I don't know what President Trump's motives are. Like you said, he may not be part of it, but I wouldn't rule out that he is because I don't trust him. But either way, it doesn't matter. This is about reaching an end game. Okay, we are in the final throes of the takedown of America. And Brannon, I've been warning for years. I said it on your show 3.5 years ago that the goal of the globalists was to get America embroiled in both World War III and Civil War here at home simultaneously. Okay, because out of chaos comes the order, the new order. And the new order, which is starting to come more into focus with Palantir creating dossiers on every American citizen, as well as, but they're doing it because they want to control the illegals. Not true. Don't believe that. That's a smokescreen. They're using this immigration issue to cover a broader agenda, which is to set up a digital surveillance control grid that will track and trace every American, as you said, with the digital ID, and bring us into this new great reset, the new world order. That's what this is all about, people. Open your eyes. It's not about immigration.
Did you see the piece in the Telegraph the other day, by the way? The Telegraph has a new piece out. Yahoo News picked it up. And it's about 15-minute cities. Here it is. Yahoo News picking up the Telegraph article. Labor, that's the Labor Party. That's the Fabian socialists who want globalism. The Labor Party was birthed by the Fabian socialists. Labor opens door to Stalinist 15-minute cities across Britain. I dealt with this in the Worldview Report tonight, my commentary. And they're talking about how they're going to limit who can drive. 15-minute cities based on the idea that a person can access amenities within a quarter of an hour by walking or cycling. In some cases, this would result in traffic restrictions being brought in for drivers. The most high-profile example plan is in Oxford, where the council put forward proposals to divide the city into 6 15-minute neighborhoods. Under the scheme, drivers would need residence permit. A residence permit that allows 100 days of free travel per year through 6 traffic filters during operating hours. So in other words, the rest of the year, you're going to be either denied or have to pay for it. Meanwhile, a separate permit allows 25 days of free travel per year through 6 congestive charge locations during charging hours. And after that, drivers face fines if they travel without the relevant permission. Greg Smith, Shadow Transport Minister, said this is the blueprint for a national rollout. Labor is giving the green light for draconian councils like Oxfordshire to police how people live, move, and drive using cameras, fines backed by DVLA. I mean, this is what you and I have warned about for what? How many years now? We have 4 or 5 years now. They've been talking about the 15-minute cities.
Yes, absolutely, Brannon. And guess what? Remember that infrastructure bill that passed under Joe Biden, $1 trillion infrastructure bill? Well, buried in that bill, which was over 2,000 pages, was a measure that mandates remote vehicle kill switches for the U.S. government to be able to disable vehicles. I wrote about this last week. There you go. Thanks for putting that up. Well, it came up for a vote last week with Thomas Massie trying desperately to get an amendment to that bill passed that would cancel out this remote vehicle kill switch mandate. All new vehicles starting in 2026, this year, that come off the assembly lines in America or are imported into this country by foreign manufacturers must be outfitted with a remote kill switch. They can shut off your car anytime they want. Now, wouldn't that fit in well with what you were just reading? And President Trump, bless his heart, did nothing to help Thomas Massie's measure get passed. Why? Because he doesn't like Thomas Massie, because Thomas Massie, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene and a couple of other Republicans, want the administration to live up to its promises to release the Epstein files. That's what it's all about for him, okay? So he's willing to sacrifice our automobiles and turn them into Orwellian surveillance machines that can be shut off at any. They're already spying on us. We've had those stories documenting how the average new vehicle has like 24 ways to spy on you with, all kinds of cameras and electronic spyware. But now they'll be able to kill your vehicle on top of that. Now, isn't that convenient for a government that wants to become more and more authoritarian, keeping tabs on everyone, creating 15-minute cities? Freedom cities. It's time for people to wake up, Brannon. I don't know how many times I need to say that. We don't have teams in this country, good and bad, when we're talking politically, right and left, Democrat, Republican. We have authoritarianism versus constitutional republicanism. People who actually believe the government should stick within its boundaries and not be invading our lives, spying on us, tracking us, telling us where we can go, what kind of ID we need to carry, and all of this other nonsense.
Mm-hmm. And then we got NBC reporting another person in critical condition after being shot in incident involving Border Patrol in Arizona. The person is in custody receiving care according to law enforcement. Don't know anything about the background, what happened, so we can't make any assumptions or judgments on that. But it just gives another story for the mill to go. And here's the question. Trevor Loudon last night said, if this trajectory continues, this insurrection in Minnesota, using these encrypted apps, shadowing the ICE people, giving them, tracing people's, the law enforcement's cars. They went against the police in 2020, right? Defund the police. And now they're going after the ICE guys. And I'm not sure that, frankly, between you and me, I'd like to see the background of a lot of these ICE guys. I would like to know if a lot of them were fired from police departments and they're willing to take these jobs and are not guys that should be out there. I'd like to know that. I just saw a story last week where a police officer in Arkansas, was screaming and yelling and dropping all kinds of horrible expletive on an 80-year-old man who apparently, I don't know, rolled through a stop sign or something and didn't realize he was being pulled over. And when he does finally stop, it's very, very sad video footage because the older man clearly is shaken. He didn't mean anything. I didn't realize. You can tell this is definitely an older guy in his 80s that has probably got other issues going on, but we don't know as we're watching this. And this cop is just dropping such abusive, disrespectful language on him, calling him names. Finally, it tells him to get out of the car. You're going to jail. And the man complies, but it seems very confused. At some point, he does ask to make a phone call. He couldn't remember his daughter's name. Then he did, and he gets her on the phone. And the daughter informs the police officer he's had 3 strokes and is in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's or dementia. And that, according to the report I read, that guy ended up being let go from that police department, but he got picked up by another one in Arkansas, according to the report. And I reported for years, I think it was John Stossel. John Stossel, back in the early 90s, mid 90s, John Stossel did a piece, I think it's for ABC, on the number of cops that get let go for bad behavior. And they don't get reported to any kind of national database. And they even sometimes get a letter, a glowing letter when they leave, because the department doesn't want a lawsuit and they just want to be rid of them. And they give them a glowing letter out the door and they get picked up by another department. And John Stossel's point was, when you realize how many of these guys have been passed around that should never be cops to start with and who have horrific backgrounds, but there's no national database to go in there and say, well, what is his record? I have to wonder how many of them, however, have found themselves finally getting caught up and can't get a job, and so they get picked up by ICE. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but my gut says, having watched a few of these guys, what's their background? I want to know how many of them are jacked up on steroids, how many of them have lost policing jobs. There's a lot of questions I'd like to know to see if these are guys that are going in and doing this job with the highest level of professionalism versus as much bravado as possible and stirring the pot, because that's not what you want. And I'm reading that President Trump is like, I don't want all this on camera. I don't want all this. I just want deportations. And I don't understand why we're doing some of this stuff in broad daylight, why it's not more surgical and quick versus broad daylight, where you can invite rioters, protesters, and the media. Why is it so public? Now, I know some of it's public because they're tracking them and they're getting help apparently from people inside government and maybe even police departments on the cameras that are scanning the license plates. It seems to me, however, with all that, and it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, that this has got to be done differently. And again, are we hiring people that are going to do the job quickly and professionally? Or are we hiring people that should never have had the job and you're just inviting for this to go bad? Seems to me there's got to be a way to do this where you get them quick, get out. And I don't know how many ICE guys are trained for that. I think a lot of them are trained to go to meat packing plants and pick up people and blah. I don't think a lot of them are trained to deal with the crowds, the protesters, this kind of thing. Now, I understand they're probably changing some of that. They're probably putting up that kind of training. But we need the highest quality police officers we can get, not people that are substandard. Would you agree?
Well, the problem, Brandon, is there's not enough people who want to do that job.
Of course not.
I mean, and as far back as 10 years ago, okay, this was before we were having like the Summer of Love, violent riots and stuff like that. There was an article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, okay, about the Atlanta Police Department, major, big, huge police department, okay, one of the largest in the Southeast for sure, if not the nation. And Brannon, they found that 30% of the cops on the Atlanta Police Department had criminal records, and many of them had felonies. So, like I said, this was 10 or 12 years ago, long before it was like totally difficult to find cops. And they were having trouble even then getting enough for a big city police force that didn't have criminal records. So I can only imagine what kind of records these thugs we've seen for ICE have. Okay, these are not professional law enforcement officers. And that's been evidenced now time and time again. If all you have to do is go on X and look at the videos, pulling pregnant women out of vehicles, okay, by force, throwing them to the ground, old men coming to a house of an old man, ordering him to come out, that he's going to be arrested, and it's a U.S. citizen, not an illegal. This is completely botched operation, and I think ICE needs to be closed down and start all over again.
Well, they certainly need some better training. I did find a little piece you might find interesting, because here in the Mid-South, I can tell you that I'm told that they are hiring bounty hunters that are now working with ICE. And they're finding some of these people that are working on the job as contractors, and they're tearing down the doors, the black security doors, steel rod doors, and then they're tearing down the wood door to get into the house where these guys or gals are working, to drag them off. And apparently they're tracking their phones. And they're not leaving any note as to who just tore down the doors and did $1,000 plus in damage. Neighbors are taking pictures, and so the people that own the property are finding out that there was workers in there when the home was being turned over from renter to renter, and a contractor was hired who had a person in there. I guess they were after, ICE was after, but the homeowner doesn't know that the contractor hired this, and then the $1,000 in damage or plus is done to the property, and they don't even need to leave a notice saying, "Hey, ICE was here, we did this. Here's who to contact if you want more information," or to file a claim to get this. So they're running around damaging the American taxpayers' property with no repercussion and going onto that private property with no warrants. Leo?
Totally unprofessional, Brandon. I don't know what else you could say about it. I mean, this is not a professional police force. I keep telling people that. I don't even consider them law enforcement at this point. I consider them jackbooted thugs who have been given what, as J.D. Vance says, absolute immunity. That means they can do whatever the heck they want and face no consequences. And that's why even after a shooting, a questionable shooting, and in this last case, a blatantly wrong use of lethal force, they can be back on the job the next day. Even minor professional protocols would call for that officer to be put on leave of absence until the case is investigated. But no, it's not just a case of bad, poorly trained agents. This goes from the top down, poorly organized, poorly managed operation.
And I want to be clear. I would like to see more illegals taken out of the country. And particularly, I want them going first and foremost, though, after the hardened criminals. MS-13, Trinidad Aragua, Hamas, Hezbollah.
The 100,000 Chinese men of military age. Why are we seeing pregnant women pulled out of cars and old men and roofers and landscapers being rounded up when we still have those?
And that's the point. That's the point where you and I are strongly agreeing here tonight.
That should be first priority.
Priority one.
The violent gang members, the drug dealers, and the Chinese nationals.
Yep.
That should be the first priority. After you got them rounded up, ICE, then you can think about the roofers and landscapers.
And the painters, right? Yeah, in fact, I just found a John Stossel piece that folks might find interesting. Kind of goes to the point we're talking about. Watch this. All right, come back to me. Why is it not working? I'll try it again here, guys. Here we go. What
happens if police destroy your house while trying to catch a bad guy?
They told my son that they just needed to poke some holes in the house.
Those so-called holes made the home uninhabitable.
The house was so badly damaged, it had to be demolished.
At least insurance covers this, no?
The insurance company said it was an act of the government, that they would not pay for it.
So will government pay?
The city of McKinney refused to pay.
This keeps happening.
Breaking news in North Hollywood, where police are dealing with the barricade situation of an armed suspect.
Carlos Pena used to run this little print shop in Los Angeles.
I was doing good.
But that changed when
a man running from police suddenly barricaded himself inside of Pena's no-hope printing and graphics shop.
I see a guy rushing at me.
Pena didn't know the man who knocked him to the ground outside his shop. And then
I saw the SWAT team showing up, and that's where everything started.
Pena watched as the police launched tear gas, lots of it.
31 or 32 rounds of tear gas. And then I started thinking, what's going to happen?
After a long standoff, the SWAT team broke in only to discover that the suspect had already escaped. Pena was finally allowed to return to his shop.
The first thing I said, why didn't this guy just shoot me? Because all the work of my life. I mean, it's just got ruined.
The SWAT team smashed doors, made a giant hole in the ceiling, and most damaging, shot in so much tear gas that they wrecked all his equipment. Of course, Pena assumed they'd reimburse him.
The marshals gave you a form to fill out about the damages.
I got a little happy because I thought I was going to be reimbursed. I itemized everything that was damaged.
But the marshals found a reason to reject that.
I didn't sum it up. I only said that it was about 62 to 63,000. Probably they didn't have a calculator at the time.
So you added that.
Then a couple months later, I got another letter of denial.
This time, the marshals said, "We're not responsible. Pursue your claim with the police department." So you go to the city then says, the claim is to be denied.
And I said, why? And she said, because the SWAT team is immune. They can cause any damage to your property and they don't have to pay for it. I said, but this is not my fault. You're making me feel it is my freaking fault and I didn't do anything.
Pena thought he'd finally get paid when someone from the mayor's office called.
The new mayor of Los Angeles, her assistant called me, said, you know what, the mayor is very interested in helping you.
But half a year later, the mayor still hasn't done anything. Pena tried the city council.
They just gave me numbers to call. And when you call, they referred me to somebody else. It's unbearable.
It is. The city destroys your business and then ignores you. We asked city officials to comment. They would not.
When police destroy innocent people's property, even to get a dangerous criminal off the street, they have to pay for the damage that they did.
Lawyer Jeffrey Redfern of the Institute for Justice took Pena's case for free because he thinks what happened to Pena is unconstitutional. But police sometimes do need to wreck a house to get the bad guy.
Absolutely. We're not suggesting that police did anything wrong here, but this is damage that was done for a public purpose. And if the city is paying for this, then the city can decide what kind of policies it wants to adopt.
Maybe they'd shoot in less tear gas.
When they get to offload these costs to random unlucky individuals, they don't have to do that kind of cost-benefit analysis.
You have lost in one case.
There was a case where a shoplifter barricaded himself inside a home, and the police ended up destroying the house.
The homeowner calls it an abomination.
Somebody needs to fess up to the fact that you have destroyed somebody's lives here.
The city did not compensate the owner at all.
The judge says this is police power, which would give officers a right to use private property without compensation.
It's absolutely crazy. What the court said was because law enforcement is doing this for the public good, it wouldn't be fair to force them to compensate people. But that's the entire point of the takings clause.
The Constitution says government can't just take or destroy private property without just compensation.
If the government takes your house to build a road or a school, you get compensation because it's not fair for you to bear that burden alone.
Carlos Pena now works out of his garage, and he's lost most of his business.
And yet, we have stories, documented stories, either bounty or ICE tearing up private property of landlords, homeowners, to get to an illegal contractor, an illegal alien who was working for a contractor that the homeowner in the story I know about knew nothing about. No note, no notice, $1,000 of damage, no warrant, just came onto the property. And this kind of thing's going on all over the country. And you're going to hear more and more about it, I'm sure. I hope more people will speak up and tell their story, like the one I know about. But this is where we're at. And this is not right. Leo?
Brannon, I have one word for it. Lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
When the government grows to the point where it feels it can get away with exercising unchecked power, we're all going to suffer. Not just the left if it happens under a Republican president, and not just the right if it happens under a Democrat president. All of us. And until we start seeing each other as human beings and all Americans, it's not going to stop because they have us divided. They know that whoever's in power now, a Republican or a Democrat, they can get at least half the country to support whatever they do, no matter how lawless it is. ICE just claimed for itself last week unchecked power to enter people's homes. They don't need a warrant, they said. They can bash down your door, enter your home, and based on a little app on their phones from a company called Palantir, they have a targeting formula that says you may be an illegal. Well, guess what? Palantir software based on AI, facial recognition software, and all of the rest, the electronic computerized wizardry that they're known for, they have a 10% fail rate. Look what they've done in Gaza. The same Palantir software was used to target Palestinians there, admittedly with a 10% failure rate on who's a terrorist and who's not and deserves to be killed, and who is not a terrorist and doesn't deserve to be killed. So now that was the testing ground. Palantir was used in Gaza to test out this New World Order police state software to be used in the rest of the world, including here in America. And I'm afraid we're getting ready to see what that feels like big time. And that includes us on the right. When someone like Gavin Newsom enters the White House, or Congress goes to the other side, that same unchecked power that many of us on the right are now cheering for will be used against us.
I told one of my broadcast partner friends today, I'm so glad I get the chance to teach so much Bible and biblical worldview, because if I didn't get to do that, I would feel like I'm just standing here with a small little bucket in my hand, bailing the Titanic.
Yeah.
If I had to come to the desk every day and just talk about some of this stuff without being able to apply the biblical worldview, give the gospel, teach, things about the book of Daniel and Revelation and give context, I wouldn't want to do this job, because I'm increasingly feeling like we are bailing on the Titanic. Even when the Republicans are in charge, they go along and they vote for the most horrendous stuff. I mean, I just had an article that was by Gun Owners of America that was talking about what cowards so many of the Republicans are. And it was Gun Owners of America. I mean, that's a group we've talked about tonight, but they were talking about what cowards a lot of the Republicans are. And then, of course, the Republicans, a bunch of them went along with this piece of legislation the other day that keeps funding a lot of this garbage all over the world. You know what I'm talking about? That democracy group. I mean, the Republicans are doing this. The problem is we have a lot of Republicans that aren't Republicans. They're Democrats under Republican name.
Well, and it goes to the leadership. When you got people like Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House, and
Yes.
the way that the party system works now, 90% or more of the Republicans, they just get their walking papers each day from the House Speaker or the whip, and they vote straight party line.
Yep.
They don't look at the issue and research it themselves and read the 2,000-page bill that has horrible stuff buried in it. They just do what they're told. They're up there for a comfortable life, so everybody will bow and kiss their boots and say, "Hello, Mr. Congressman, can I ask you a question?" I mean, these people, 90% of them are up there for the wrong reason. And what concerns me is the few who are up there for actually trying to do good, like Thomas Massey, incur the wrath of Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump gave an interview this afternoon when he was in Iowa to Fox News. He says if the Dems win, he will be impeached.
Oh, they'll probably try and impeach me. They'll say he went to Iowa and he spoke unfairly to people, and he's not supposed to do that. Let's impeach him, okay? Then the people in Iowa would say, how did he get impeached? He just did an interview with Will, who has very good ratings, okay? But they just did an interview with Will. Now, they'll find something. There'll be something, I made the wrong turn at an exit, and let's impeach him. No, they did that before. They impeached me on a perfect phone call. Turned out they impeached me twice. And by the way, I won the impeachments very easily and quickly. But they impeach. They're very nasty people. They have bad policy, really bad, but they do two things. They stick together, not stupid, but some are, because, that's true with everything, right? But they stick together, but they have really bad policy. Men and women's sports, transgender for everybody. So many things are so bad. They're horrible to the farmers.
You know, we've got just a few months left.
Yeah.
We got just
That's
a few
posturing. That was all posturing right there, what you saw. I can't even take anything he says seriously anymore.
We have just a few months left to get stuff done legislatively. Then they will impeach him. Stuff will not roll through. Whether he's convicted and removed, that'll be seen. But we've got until, about a year from right now, a year from last week, to get legislation signed. Then you got a new Congress coming in. So the election's in November. They get sworn in January. We've got less than 12 months now to get serious change done to save the republic. I don't think enough has been done to save the republic. I really don't. And I'm very, very concerned.
Well, not only has not enough been done to save the republic, Brannon, I see a lot being done to help finish it off. What I see going on, ratcheting up the tensions, furthering the divisions that were already out there when President Trump took office. We needed a president who would try to bring the country together, at least not, if not on the same page, at least not to hate each other and celebrate when the other side gets killed. Okay. Is that asking too much? I think it is for this president. He just doesn't know how to cool down the rhetoric and convince people that we're all Americans. We don't have to all agree with each other. Instead, he picks the worst. What he just did right there was very strategic in that interview. He picked the worst possible thing he could think of about the Democrats, transgender ideology, and used that as the reason why they might impeach him. The Democrats do the same thing. Biden did the exact same thing. We need a president against us. We need a president who starts to see himself as being elected to represent the whole country and not half the country. Until that happens, it's not going to get any better, folks. And we're going to continue moving towards a more authoritarian nation because the whole thing is part of a Hegelian dialectic, a psyop, to have the left come in and do this, that, and the other that creates these problems that are either real or perceived or exaggerated in some cases, even if they are real. And then you get the other side come into office and, okay, we got to fix this. But the solution is actually worse than the problem because it's moving us towards greater state power that then the other side will come in and say, okay, you did this. I can do that too.
And that's going to be the boomerang.
And they use it against the other side.
And that will be the boomerang when the Marxists take back over.
Yes. Yes.
Listen to this. Apparently, according to this video, this guy is running for Democrat for Attorney General in Ohio. Is this really true? I guess Logan sent me this to watch. Here we go.
Hi, this is Elliot Forehand, candidate for Ohio Attorney General. I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump. I mean, I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, based on evidence presented at a trial conducted in accordance with the requirements of due process, resulting in a sentence duly executed of capital punishment. That is what I mean when I say that I
don't even want to finish that. I'm so sick of this. Okay.
That's the flip side of what I'm talking about.
That is.
Yes.
All right. This is what I'm tired of. And I think a lot of Americans are tired of it, right? They just want to get back to a normal, sane society. And of course, a lot of people don't remember a normal, sane society, right? A lot do in this audience because they're older than I am. But I would have never dreamed in the 1980s when I was in high school that someone running for a public office would say something like that, right? Much less what is said, and all the other garbage that goes on, teaching children about sexual perversion that I can't even mention on the air in our textbooks. I mean, all I can say is, even Lord Jesus, quickly come and night shall be no more. I am so tired, and I don't see this country coming together. I know that some folks are probably going to be upset with you, Leo, but you're entitled to your opinion. I think some people will be upset with you on one part. They'll agree with you on another part. But I will tell you, this back and forth, it is so back and forth constantly. I don't know how you can ever repair the breach. I really don't. And if this guy talking like this is representative of what is coming, it is going to be worse than under the Biden years. Because these people now seem empowered and emboldened to think that their lawlessness is somehow justice, that what they're doing is actually legitimate under the law. You know, Hitler and his people, when they went to trial, Hitler wasn't there, but when the Nuremberg trials took place, those guys said, well, we didn't break any laws. We didn't break any laws. That's because they changed all the laws, so everything they did wasn't illegal. But there's a moral law, and that's the bottom line. We've got to get back to a moral law, the law of nature and nature's God, the value of human life, respect for people, not dehumanizing people, and not where we have, like one of the judges up in the Twin Cities, I guess a federal judge, isn't signing on to arrest warrants for people related to, I think, this church invasion. And apparently, according to one report I read today, he was contributing to some of these immigration groups. So he should recuse himself, right? We have such lawlessness, not with people running for office, like whatever this guy is we just played, but people who are actually sitting on the federal bench. Can you imagine getting charged with something in today's world and dealing with a prosecutor who is ideological driven? His whole thing is ideology, and he reads over your Facebook page and your articles, Leo, or watches my show, and he's a prosecutor who's only interested in nailing you to the wall because of your worldview, not because of what's right or wrong under the law. Can you imagine a federal judge? You have to sit there and have him control a trial if it's in the federal courts, or a state judge if it's in the state courts, when their whole objective with so many of these guys is ideology, anti-Christian, anti-God, anti-Constitution, or trying to pick a jury and find a jury of peers that aren't going to be simply looking at, oh, well, that's all we need to hear. He believes in the Bible. You know, God help us, because we have very little common ground anymore, even with the police of chief police, the police chief in some of these cities, the sheriff in some of these cities, the mayor, city council, the judges. There's not a, hey, we're apolitical. We're apolitical. We don't talk politics. We just carry out our job and do our function under the Constitution. Our rule book is the Constitution. Don't talk to me about who I'm voting for. I don't do politics. I'm law enforcement. I'm a judge. I'm a sheriff. I don't do that. I treat everybody equally. I just enforce the constitutional laws. That doesn't go on anymore. And that used to be the case in government in the federal law, Hatch Act. You couldn't be involved politically. That's not, when was the last time we prosecuted someone under the Hatch Act, right? Now you have federal government workers openly on Zoom talking about insurrection and how they're going to use their position inside the federal government to carry out an insurrection. And of course, that's what I said on radio today. That was the model for 1948, I believe it was, Czechoslovakia, the Velvety Glove Revolution. You put so many people into power in the government and the agencies that were Marxist or communist that they could take over without ever firing a shot. We're close to that right now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they take over and they start prosecuting people with hate crimes, or talking about Islam, talking about the LGBT agenda, and dragging us into court? How well do you think that's going to go for us with most of these judges? Just the judges, not to mention the juries and the prosecutors. How well is this going to go for us? Because it will not be based on the rule of law. It will be based on politics.
Yep. 100%, Brannon. And that's why I get upset when I hear conservatives saying, oh, we should make it illegal to be anti-Semitic. Oh, really? You want the left to get in power and say, okay, it's now illegal to be Islamophobic.
Even rabbis I know are not for that. They tried that over in Europe with Tony Blair. Let's prosecute people that deny the Holocaust. And it's in my book from 2016. And the rabbi said, we don't like Holocaust deniers. We like freedom of speech and freedom of religion. You start doing that and using the Holocaust as justification to limit people's religious speech and freedom, that's a double-edged sword. Thank you. We'll just deal with the Holocaust deniers ourselves. No. And of course, trying to criminalize people for anti-Semitism only blows back worse onto the Jews.
Yes, 100%.
That's a setup.
Absolutely. The problem is we've got too many. The real problem in this country, you know, we can complain about Donald Trump or we can complain about Joe Biden, but the problem in this country is us, the people. We have too many people in this country who are not serious about the Constitution and freedom. They're statists. They love state power as long as it's in the hand of their leader.
Yep. Their party.
Yes.
Yep. And of course, really, there isn't two parties. There's the uniparty. Okay, let's not kid ourselves.
Right.
LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.com. I mean, other than a few Republicans, most of these people are part of the uniparty. Here it all is, LeoHolman.substack.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. As always, Leo, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Brannon. I appreciate it. Take care.
You too. Love the back and forth. And we don't have to always agree on everything and every topic to have a robust interview and little debate here and there, right, Leo?
Absolutely, Brannon. I mean, I appreciate it. I don't need everybody. That's what's great about America and the tradition of America. We have the right to disagree and we can have civil debate. And out of that, people can make up their own mind, and the people with the best ideas, their views will become more popular, and the people with the bad ideas, the anti-Semites and those type, will become less popular.
Mm-hmm. You and I don't agree on some issues. We argue and debate off the air with each other on eschatology and all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
But you and I agree. You and I probably agree on 95% of things, right?
I think Thomas Massey would agree with Donald Trump on probably 90% of the things, but it's that 10% that he's not allowed to be under this administration. So they're running a candidate against him in a primary in Kentucky, wherever his district is. I think it's Kentucky.
It is.
And they're spending millions of dollars, the Trump administration is, to defeat Thomas Massey, a very good conservative congressman who votes with the president on 90 to 95% of the issues and is very conservative. But, you know, we just can't handle someone who doesn't agree with us on 100% of everything.
Well, I love the
That's
Reagan.
not America.
I love the Reagan quote. Someone that agrees with me 80% of the time is not a 20% enemy. There you go. LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. Thank you, Leo.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. I want to remind you, we have that vault, worldyoutube.com/vault. All my radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, Bible studies, our worldview conferences of 22 years. This is evergreen, folks. This is evergreen because it's built on a biblical worldview and the Bible. It doesn't go out of style and it doesn't go out of date. It doesn't become less applicable. It becomes more applicable. Worldview training. It doesn't age. So please consider joining. Now, remember, tomorrow I'm going to get a demo. Taken over a year for them to build all these huge servers, powerful servers, transcribe every radio show I've ever done, every TV show I've ever done, every interview, all the other shows we've carried. Dr. Andy Woods, Annie Cyrus, Phil Haney, Jimmy D. Young, all these shows I've carried for years. Those have all been transcribed. And I'm going to get to see tomorrow how I can use this new software, powerful servers to search my content, and then it'll provide me with the video clip. I ask it a question, it'll pull out a video clip from an hour video, give me the answer in video, audio from radio, or print. It's transcribed everything. I haven't seen it. One of my other IT guys has seen it. He said, Mr. Howse, it's going to blow your mind. So I'm excited to see that. That's going to be a part of the vault automatically. We're not going to raise the price at this time. So get in now because we're adding a lot more value and we're not raising the price. Plus, you get access to years and years of content that is absolutely timeless. This is going to be one of the most powerful biblical worldview, Bible prophecy, apologetic software programs in the world. So again, please consider joining now. It'll be a great way to support us and our work, to give us some of the revenue we need to pay for keeping the network on the air and expanding it. By the way, we just put out a brand new Apple TV channel. Brand new Apple TV channel. That's not free. We have to pay IT guys to go build all that. So folks, we need the budgets to do it. And the Vault is a great way for you to join, have access to this huge treasure trove. And yet it supports us too. So we're all winning. You're getting something for your support. Worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. I hope you'll join. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Of course, another way you can give is by simply going to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Hey, I haven't mentioned this in a while. Would you remember our foundation in your estate planning? We have, I think, about a dozen families now that have contacted us over the years and said, you're in our estate planning. When we're done and God calls us home, we've made provisions for your foundation. Would you do that? If so, just use that number right there. Melissa will give you our EIN number and our physical address, our official address. Give it to your tax preparer or your estate preparer. And remember the foundation in your estate planning, won't you? Thank you so much for supporting us. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God